So, welcome everybody. Today is February the 23rd, and today we have Chase Bunch with us, who is a healing facilitator and specializes in something called Bufo Toad spiritual enlightenment ceremonies. And he is going to talk with us today about what he does. And I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Diana Montijo. I am a healing facilitator, very much an amateur in this whole process of YouTube land. But so please have patience with me. But I want to give Chase an opportunity to introduce himself.
Sure. Well, as she said, my name's Chase, and if you don't mind, I'll correct you on the name of the medicine is
Thank you.
called Bufo.
Ah,
And
okay.
it's okay. And the reason it's called Bufo is because the medicine it comes from the Bufo alvarius toad, which is a toad that's found in the Sonoran Desert, all the way up into Arizona. So there's actually just a small little oval of the entire world where this particular medicine is found. The active ingredient in this medicine is 5-MeO-DMT, not to be confused with NN-DMT, which is what is in ayahuasca and some of the other snuffs that are used in other countries. Um, but it's pretty interesting. I'll give a little history on this particular medicine. So, this particular toad has some unique markings on it that are identified in, Aztec, Toltec, and Mayan cultures. You see this toad depicted in a lot of places, and but there's no recent documented history on it until about 1982. A guy comes out with this pamphlet talking about it, how to extract it from the toad, and how to receive the medicine and the integration process and things like that. So it just kind of disappeared for a really long time, and it just kind of came back to surface in 1982. So there is no like clear lineage, like with ayahuasca or with mushrooms or San Pedro or mescaline. There is no lineage of how to use this medicine, or ceremonially, or how anything about it at all. So
So before we get too far into the video, to the discussion,
sure.
I did a group chat on something called potentiation. It was a regenetics method, and it got taken off of YouTube. So for the purposes of caution, is there anything we need to steer clear of in this discussion so that we don't get taken down off of YouTube?
Yeah, good question. um I think as long as we don't talk about COVID and
I
you
know,
know
right?
and politics. um there's lots of YouTube discussions talking about this medicine, and they're
Okay.
speaking of it in its natural terms. So I don't
Okay.
believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I would like to hear more about, you and I talked a little bit about it, but I want everybody else to hear some of what you shared with me about what someone experiences during one of these ceremonies, the Bufo ceremonies.
Yeah, for sure. So before I started working with this particular medicine about a year and a half ago, we had been hosting medicine ceremonies with mushrooms and DMT for about 6 years. So we kind of like developed a format that we felt worked really well, that aligned with how we wanted to do things, and that made people feel comfortable. So typically in ceremony, we only sit with one person at a time, maybe two if it's a couple that has a good foundation. And we do that because we don't want people to feel rushed, and we want people to feel like they have our full attention, right? So that's just very, very important that we're able to be fully present for each individual. And so my partner Connie, she the medicines that she likes to work with is, she makes incredible food, and I know a lot of, and Niley can attest to this, that her food is her medicine. But she's from Oaxaca, and the other medicine that she really feels called to serve is cacao, ceremonial cacao, and it's a beautiful heart opening medicine. So that's how we begin our ceremonies. We have cacao and we just talk, just connecting with someone where they're at, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, just kind of touching base on all of those things. We find that a good conversation before ceremony actually gets the letting go process going, the releasing and allowing to happen. Even before, if we're just seeing someone for energy work, for Reiki, we'll do the same thing. We'll have just good conversation first. Um,
Um,
after, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I find sometimes when often, not sometimes, very often, when clients schedule a session with me, one thing that happens is that they will have they'll start to process emotions, and they'll tell me, oh, they were feeling a lot of stuff coming up before they even get to me. I find
Exactly.
that the healing starts even before the session starts. Do you find that with your sessions as well?
All the time. Yeah. And I even call people a day before and just let them know that typically, there's things that's coming up. The medicine already begins working a day or maybe 2 days before the ceremony.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's almost like I tell people this energy, it has a consciousness to it. And it's like it's already aware that
Yeah. Like
something's
our
going to
spirit
happen.
knows. Our spirit knows. And, there's actually the there's a research foundation that is like headlining a lot of psychedelic research, and they studied that those feelings before a ceremony and actually days before and right before, and that like anxiousness or what feels like nervousness, actually when they studied that, they did not notice an elevation in heart rate or blood pressure. So that feeling is actually something within you that's not correlated to the body. So it's like the spirit knows that something is about to happen.
Yes, it's really interesting how that happens. It is a process, and I when I do group sessions, I tell people to be mindful of how they're listening and observing to the sounds that are being broadcast, because the energy, it does have a consciousness to it, and it's really important to witness it in a way that does not have pity, and that is compassionate listening. And so I that's why I was asking you, like in the beginning, about how you hold space. And I do believe that it's really important as a facilitator. There is a factor that we bring into the process, even as just as a witness. So one of the things that's really essential is that people feel comfortable with you and that they feel safe, right?
Exactly.
It,
Yeah.
in order to be able to let go and to allow whatever needs to happen, they need to be able to feel safe with you and know that they are in the hands of somebody who really cares about what they've been through, what they're going through. It's very much a collaborative process. And so I would suspect that also comes into play with you as a facilitator.
Absolutely. And that would be another factor of that conversation, before we even get into doing anything, is building that respect, the rapport, just the comfortability, you know, to even allow someone to release, they have to feel comfortable 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you like people to know about your Bufo ceremonies?
Um, well, I can finish the process that I was
Okay,
describing.
yes, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It's no problem at all. Uh-huh. So
Okay.
after we talk and we share in cacao, we do about 15 minutes of Reiki, of energy work. And what I do is a non-touch form of energy work, just balancing the body, relaxing the nervous system so that after we get comfortable in conversation, the body can then relax. Um, and then each person has an opportunity to sit with the medicine twice. If it's someone sitting with me for the first time, we do what's called a handshake dose. And I recommend that for anyone doing any new medicine for the first time, that you do a small dose so that you can be introduced to the spirit of the medicine and it can introduce itself to you, and to know what to expect, so that it's easier to release and let go on something that would be more of a therapeutic dose. So we always do 2 doses, um, with probably about 15 to 20 minutes in between. And then, that's really just, once we're done serving medicine, that's really just half the ceremony. The other half is the integration. So we do a 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, and 2 week follow up with anyone who sits with us, just to help and aid in the integration process, to talk about whatever emotions are arising. Because this medicine is very interesting, because it's not just about having like this, spiritual epiphic experience and then everything's just different. Like, things evolve over the weeks after ceremony, and people start recognizing, like, hey, maybe I'm perceiving something different. I'm feeling new feelings about something. I'm not feeling resonance with other things that I used to. And just help make sense of that.
Um, do you find that, so it sounds like people's perspectives is probably the better word, shift after a ceremony?
Absolutely. Yeah, significantly. It's very common with this medicine for people to be able to release traumas, many traumas that they realize they didn't even have, or energy blockages within the body. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge shift on perception. When you have energy flowing freely through the body and you're seeing things clearly, absolutely. Yeah. And it can be like in a brand, you're living in a brand new world almost, so just helping them land safely and to then, move about things in a way that's serving them and they're not falling back into old patterns. um yeah, it's just really important.
Does it change people's individual vibration, their individual energy signature? Because we all have our own vibration. Does this ceremony alter it? And if it does, in what way would you say?
I would say what I've seen is it has the potential and the consistency to expand someone's consciousness and elevate their consciousness. Are you familiar with the Dr. Hawking scale levels of consciousness? Like,
I am not familiar with that.
okay, so he like took a vibrational um, measure using muscle testing of like shame, guilt, and fear, anger being the lower levels of consciousness up into like acceptance.
Oh, I
And
have heard of that.
yeah, it's often referenced quite a lot, especially in teachings now. But Dr. David Hawkins was the originator of that particular scale. And what I find is, if you have a certain vibrational energy signature because you're living in guilt and shame as your, consistent average vibration, and then you come out of that into a place where of acceptance and you're ready to make a change, that's a new vibrational state. And so I would say that is how, for sure, it.
Well, that makes sense because those are all frequencies. All emotions have their own individual frequencies. And I found shame to be really high on the scale as far as the kind of destruction it could cause between internally and also with relationships. People will burn a bridge over shame, and if somebody is holding shame, like for example, um, anyone who has been, sorry, trigger alert, guys, anyone who has been sexually abused or raped, they carry a lot of shame of what was done to them, and they weren't the perpetrators, but they carry the shame of it. And it's like a really toxic emotion that they walk around with every day.
Yeah, I agree. Well, on that level of consciousness, shame and guilt are the lowest vibrational states that, on a scale from 0 to 1,000, they're like 20 and 40.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe that. So what else could you share with us about the ceremony and what people experience during the ceremony?
Yeah. So that's the format that we do. You know, I'll do my best to speak generally about an experience that's beyond three-dimensional words, is one of the only ways I can really describe it. Because if you've had any like profound spiritual experience, when you try to explain it, words just don't do it justice. But from to give a reference, and from my understanding of witnessing, a few hundred of these ceremonies, is um, things like ayahuasca and DMT. They're very third eye chakra activating medicines. They're very visual. You're interacting with entities, um, just visually extremely stunning. And this particular medicine, I feel, is more of a crown chakra medicine, because you're having an out of body experience. It's beyond the five senses. So your normal five senses you're used to interacting with are not present. So the way many people have described it and how I experience it is you're being dissolved into the oneness of everything. And that oneness feels like home, and it feels familiar, and it feels like love. Um, and it's the way people describe near death experiences and the transformations that they have after a near death experience, and how they perceive everything, and how habits and addictions just seem to fall away and their life completely changes. I would say it's very similar to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm listening. I'm trying to monitor the request to join us.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
um, okay. Okay, so what would you say to somebody who has some fears or concerns about doing this kind of a spiritual ceremony?
Yeah. um I would say that it would be good for us to just to sit down and have a good conversation about it. There's we're where I'm at and where I will always be. We're not advertising, and we're not seeking out to try to get as many people as possible into a ceremony like this. Like, it needs to be a calling, like a calling from here. It needs to like actually feel like a pull. And if someone's not feeling that pull, if they're just like seeking an experience, or um like a thrill seeker, then I often tell people no. Like, I actually don't sit with those people, or do ceremony with them. I would rather just sit and have good conversation. Or there's been many times, where if someone doesn't have a way to center themselves, if they don't have a foundational daily spiritual practice of meditation or yoga or something like that, where they're gaining control over their themselves, I would say something like mushrooms would be better for them as an introduction, and then begin a daily grounding practice, and then eventually leading up to a medicine like this. This medicine isn't for everyone. If someone is, there are some contraindications. If someone is on antidepressants, SSRIs, MAOIs, or if they have like severe heart issues, then it's recommended not to take this medicine. Not because it's dangerous; it's very safe. But there's an interaction with the serotonin A2 receptor in the brain, and you can develop something called serotonin syndrome, um, which can be um, not good for an individual. So we do a pre-screening with anyone before we sit with them, just checking in with them, like making sure they're not on any type of those medications, that they're grounded, they don't have any heart issues, things like that. Before, it's more of like, you need to screen with us before we'll serve you, not we're open to anybody and serve anybody as long as you've got some money. That's not how we do our practice.
Well, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Is there anyone else here besides Nayeli who has been through one of your ceremonies? Because Nayeli, I'm really grateful. I talked to her before today and she agreed to share with us her experience. That's why I reached out to you, because
Mhm.
she spoke so highly of it. And so I really wanted to have someone on who had been through the process and could share what it's like from a firsthand account.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is there anybody else here that you know of that has been through your ceremony?
Let's see. Um, I don't,
No?
it's, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Nayeli, you want to give us, do you want to share with us about what your ceremony was like with Chase?
Yes, I sure can. So I've known Chase for since 2017, I believe. So since 2017, I've known him, and I met him because of my close friend Connie. So Connie is his divine partner. Um, when he introduced me to other sacred medicines before, and I was going through my spiritual journey, so I was being called to them. And of course, I trust Chase because he's a really good friend and he has this really calming aura. So he has a really healing aura. And what I channel sometimes, so I even told him, I'm like, Chase, you have all the rainbow spectrum, you know? So he's like my brother. He's my soul family. So I trusted him when he told me about this Bufo medicine before, the 5-MeO. He showed me and he sent a link basically explaining what it was, what I was gonna go through. And I saw the documentary of it and I really got intrigued, like, okay, should I do this medicine? And of course I seeked my angelic team, my ancestors, if it was okay for me to go into this sacred practice. And they said yes. So I was like, say less. I'm gonna go. So that day, my best friend is also spiritual Teresa, the one you met her before.
Uh-huh.
She was also intrigued in trying the sacred medicine. So she went with me that day and we both got introduced to the medicine. After when I took it at first, it didn't really hit me because I told Chase that it felt like I had taken it before in a past life,
Ah,
if that makes.
that does make sense.
Yes. So then I told him, I'm like, it's not hitting me so much. So then I took it the second time, and this is when it really like it hit me. It was such a like for every person their experience is different, but for me, I felt so much unconditional love. Like I felt the love of my family members, the love of angels, the love of it's basically called the God molecule because it makes you feel connected with everything. Like after this medicine, I basically saw life more beautiful. I connected more with people that I loved. I was less judgmental. I understood people more. So when I took the medicine, the first instance that I felt was me falling from a cloud. But at the same time, as if I was being holded by something or someone, and something told me, "You're taken care of. You're protected. You're loved." And it literally, I'm not joking. It felt like seeing a big, huge white light, like how people say that when they pass away they see the white light, but the white light was filled with so much love. I saw hummingbirds, I saw angelic wings. It was just like something that you can't explain because it's filled with so much love.
One of the things that really fascinated me about how you shared your experience was, I told you guys, I've really been listening to a lot of near-death experience videos, and that's one of the things they talk about is the unconditional love that you feel when you go to the other side. And you described it so well. I've always wished that I could just get a glimpse, just a glimpse. I just wanted to get a glimpse of heaven. And that's what it sounded like when you described your experience. And it was also, I think, the look on your face when you talked about your Bufo ceremony. There was something about the look on your face that spoke of what a beautiful experience it was for you. And I remember you also saying that it only lasted 20 minutes, but in those 20 minutes, you received everything that you needed.
Yes.
All of the information, all of the answers. When you do a Bufo ceremony, Chase, do you ask the person to go into the ceremony with an intention of what they want to get out of it, or what they want to heal, or what they want to know?
With this particular medicine, no. With other medicines like mushrooms, yes. With this one, it's more of just prepping someone to be in a fully surrendered state, allowing whatever to come up, just to come up, and to release whatever needs to be released. You know, the spirit of any medicine is so intelligent that I would say it's better to have an intention of why you're seeking it out rather than an actual intention for that particular ceremony. Like, you know, for example, someone's maybe like, I'm wanting to expand my consciousness, or, you know, I feel like I've got some type of trapped energy in my body. I would just like some clarity on that. Or I know I've experienced trauma in my childhood, and, you know, I've tried other modalities that didn't help me release that. And I'm feeling a call to this particular medicine. I don't know why. Um, you know, so then I'll help them explore that. But I was saying, but like saying that you need to have an intention on this one specific thing, I would say this is particular medicine is more about just letting go of all of that and just setting yourself up into just being a surrendered state.
Okay. How long have you been facilitating these ceremonies?
Sure. So ceremonies in general, probably almost 7 years. Um, with this particular medicine, I was first introduced to it in when we moved to or started exploring the idea of moving to Sedona, Arizona. You know, I had always wanted and had kind of had a calling to this medicine, but I never wanted to seek it out. And I built a good relationship with a guy at a project that we work with called the Sedona Greenhouse Project. Um, Basically, we're creating a sustainable food system for the city of Sedona, run by the community. And he had had a lot of experience with it. And the first time that we set up a time for him and I to meet. And the first time that I sat with this medicine, it was like it was showing off to me. It was showing off all the different characteristics, all the ways it could do a healing. Uh, you know, having an experience of oneness with everything. It was just like it was like it's showing off. It wasn't like a personal experience. And then I sat with it again that same day, about 30 minutes later, and it just felt like I just felt such a strong pull to share this with people, the same as I had with the other medicines that I started working with previously. And I told, you know, my facilitator, I told him, you know, I'd be honored if you would share this if you'd let me learn with you. So he was hosting ceremony every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I would go basically shadow him. And because I had experience working in a ceremonial kind of space, you know, I've hopped in really easily. And just seeing all the different people's reactions and how he helped them process, how he did, you know, the pre-screening and the integration afterwards. So for about 3 or 4 months, every single weekend, 3 times a week, I would just host ceremony with him, observing. So I had an intensive training, and then his teachers, who are from Colombia, their primary medicine is ayahuasca, but they also serve this medicine. When they came to town, we had like an unexpected kind of, I guess, like initiation into this medicine, where we spent a whole afternoon just sitting with the medicine over and over and over and over. After we visited a few sacred sites in Sedona. And then after serving the medicine for about a year, I kind of, I guess, earned the right to have a connection to the tribe in Mexico in the Sonoran Desert, who are the caretakers of the toads down there, to basically connect with me with them so I would have access to the medicine. So
Um,
a year and a half, pretty consistently, I've been doing about 2 to 3 ceremonies a week.
okay. So, other than the contraindications that you already spoke of, are there any other contraindications?
No, the MAOIs, SSRIs, heart conditions. And besides that, it's a pretty safe medicine, it's safe for, I would say, I've only served one person who was early in their pregnancy. But they say it's safe for pregnant women.
Wow.
And this has to be a unique situation because I would say this medicine is even okay for like children under the age of 18, as
Wow.
long as they've had a consistent spiritual practice for a period of time. So like I've served people in my family who were younger children who had a meditation practice for 5 years, and they were like divinely, like, it was part of who they were. You shouldn't just give this to someone who has no practice. That's what I said. It's like the pre-screening. The only other contraindication with me is just someone who's just not feeling grounded at all.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
No, do your thing. It's okay.
Okay, so let's see. Someone is saying they can't hear you, but I can hear Chase. Is there anybody else who can't hear? Raise your hand. No. Brooklyn, can you hear? Okay. Okay, so someone is asking if there is a difference between the Bufo medicine and the San Pedro cactus, which I never heard of the San Pedro cactus. Maybe you can share with us the difference between the two.
For sure. So San Pedro is very similar to peyote, where the active psychoactive ingredient is mescaline. And the effects of those medicines can be visual at higher doses, but they're more of like what people are probably more familiar with, like an MDMA experience. They're very heart opening and loving. Typically those medicines are used in group ceremonial setting to like bring together a tribe to help resolve issues within a tribe, to just really open the heart. Those have been my experiences and how I've used that particular medicine. We do community group San Pedro ceremonies where we're living in Sedona, and it's just beautiful how it just brings everyone together in a heart open space where we dance together, we sing, we play instruments. It's just very beautiful. And this is pretty close to like how Nayeli is describing, is it's close to a near-death experience and the positive effects of what you see someone coming back from a near-death experience with.
Oh, so one thing I've noticed when I work with clients who have had a near-death experience, there's a very distinct difference from people who have not had a near-death experience. Their biofields are expanded, and the energy in their biofield is very, very strong. When I use a pendulum to move around their biofield, I get like a helicopter spin. It's very, very strong energy spin. And it's been like that consistently. Every time I've had a client who has had a near-death experience, their biofield is just like, they're at a different level. Have you noticed anything like that? Any differences in people?
Yeah. There's just something similar to the near-death experience. Once you have an out-of-body experience, and you just like you have an experience of, because we all like to say in the spiritual community, oh, we're all one, and there's no difference between any of us. But when you have an actual experience of that, and you can see that the foundation of the oneness of everything is God, and that feels like love, and that there's just this profound sense of knowing that there's nothing to worry about and everything's going to be okay. That just forever changes someone, so I can see for sure energetically that's going to be for sure expansive. And there's also something special about too, like when you can look at your hands and to say like, I know I'm not the body, and to know that, not to just say it, but to like know it and to have an experience of that. That's just so profound and epiphanic to someone that it's going to just change everything.
Yeah, and one thing that I have come to understand, like about the biofield, is that the physical body, it's just a container, and our souls are so vast that it expands beyond the physical body. Our biofield is actually, to me, it's part of our soul. That our soul is so this is just like a temporary container. That's just the way that I see it. Somebody is asking about the process that they've seen, and you and I touched base on this when we met before this Zoom meeting. Someone's asking about what happens during a session that they have seen. Some people just lie still, some people are talking, some people are drooling, and I think you mentioned some people will even contort, their bodies will contort during a session.
Yeah, there's a wide range of reactions with this medicine, which is why it's so important that, if you do seek out a facilitator for this medicine, that you feel very safe and grounded with that individual, because, the range of experiences, and, if you're watching from the outside, someone experiences medicine, it can go from, them thinking that they are Jesus or the Buddha or God, like this, some divine character, to the middle being just like pure bliss, love, crying, feeling expanded, to the other extreme, which is what you would almost see as a full-on exorcism, um, hissing, and yes, drooling, spitting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting, but it's each trauma has a unique way of leaving the body, and it's just different forms of the trauma look differently. The way I see it, when this medicine releases trauma from the body, it goes through like stages of coming and releasing out of the body. And the physical is just the physical reaction. And then I feel like, even sometimes there can be, cold or flu-like symptoms. I don't know if you've ever had any of your clients experience this, where they get cold and flu a couple of days after.
I think that's detox. I've had clients who have reported rashes, and those are like kind of like extreme cases, but the body detoxes because we hold this energy in our body and in the biofield, and so there's like this whole detox that can happen. So that's what I think you're describing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying there. I think there's a detox of that energy through the body in different stages. But yes,
What's the process?
Yeah, there's a whole process of it being released. But yeah, the most common reaction to this medicine is a little bit of crying, a little bit of laughing, a feeling of peace and joy, and expansion. The extremes are, thinking you are Jesus or Buddha, and then also like an exorcism like experience. I've hosted a few hundred of these ceremonies, and I've only had 2 people have an exorcism like experience. But what is interesting is, those people continue to work with me, and over a series of about 4 to 5 sessions, that exorcism like experience effect of the medicine slowly declined, and they came back into more of a centered experience where they just felt love and peace.
Okay, so speaking to that, because we're on the subject, speaking to that, I have a few questions, but I want to address something you said. When someone holds a lot of stagnant energy in their biofield, it is my understanding that that is energy that entities can attach themselves to. So what you're talking about in an exorcism type of reaction, is it possible that there actually is some kind of exorcism taking place when you are, because of its healing and releasing, isn't it possible that that's what's taking place during a Bufo ceremony?
Possible, yeah. You know, my perspective on, you know, the devil and heaven and hell and all these things is that, you know, though all those things are just aspects of God, and it's a different, you know, frequency of God, and all of those things serve us. You know, they're meant to teach us. You know, my belief is that we're here on Earth University, and we're here to learn and to grow and to expand and to remember what we are. And I don't look at those things as being negative in a sense. Maybe a negative energy, if you were to like measure on a pulse from positive to negative, yes, and maybe carry a negative energy, which can be perceived as evil. But the foundation of everything is God, and the foundation of that is love. So I try not to like label too much about what it is that's exactly happening for that particular person. It's more of just making sure that I'm keeping a loving container. And, you know, before we go into ceremony, before we do anything, we call in the presence of God to be with us and guide us. We call in our ancestors, our spiritual support teams, you know, our galactic brothers and sisters, whoever that may be that wants to come in to support us. So, I mean, there's no fear or worry or, you know, trying to figure out too much about, oh, that was this type of demon or this or that. We don't really worry about that. And as far as the method for how they're attached to that person, that's also something that I'm not too particularly concerned about right now. I do find it interesting, but it's not something that we're super focused on.
Okay. So in addressing one of the questions, there's some questions. I actually have a couple of people asking about contacting you. So I'd like to leave that towards the end, if that's okay. But I do have someone asking if you've ever had somebody who was diagnosed with PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar, who has gone to one of your sessions, and if so, what was that experience like?
For sure. We worked with several people with PTSD. So yeah, bipolar and schizophrenia, that's not necessarily a contraindication, but it's just something to be aware of. And typically if someone comes to me and say, hey, I'm diagnosed schizophrenic or bipolar, usually what I'll do is I'll recommend doing a low dose of mushrooms with them first, just to see how they react, you know, psychologically to being in an altered state of consciousness, to just kind of like get like, I guess, you know, where the test strips are, like a test, just a litmus test of just how they're going to react, and then kind of monitor and talk to them over, you know, a period of time before we jump into doing something like this. But PTSD, you know, PTSD and drug addictions, you know, they're finding with this medicine that it's just like gone after just after, you know, one or even two. I mean, there's people who've come in with, you know, addictions to methamphetamines or crack cocaine or heroin, and they're just, you know, or nicotine, and they're just done.
What
After
about alcohol?
alcohol as well. Yeah. I mean, it's just wild what it's doing for addictions. You know, it's just really amazing what it's doing for addictions. But any type of, and that's why I said a contraindication of being working with someone who's not feeling grounded, I would say the schizophrenic and bipolar would fall into that category. And that's where I would say, hey, like, I still want to help you on your journey, but let's do a low dose of mushrooms and just see how you handle an altered state and how you integrate that before we go into like a full blown, you know, 5-MeO experience.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. I think I've addressed all of the questions. except I've got a couple who have been asking about how to contact you. And we went over like where the sessions take place. You mentioned it's at a friend's house, and we're not going to share that publicly.
We're creating a sacred space, and we have a home to ourselves, and we're creating a sacred space there. It's just so we live in Sedona, Arizona, and we live on a beautiful property there. And we have, a very sacred space that's been used for medicine and healing journeys and community healing for a long time, for many years. That's where we typically do ceremony. I actually like to work on the land somewhere, like being out in nature somewhere is actually where I prefer. So, anyone's welcome, of course. I'll at the end of this, we'll give our contact information. They're of course welcome to come to Sedona. There's profound healing and transformations that happens there because of the heightened state of energy that's there. But in the meantime, while we're here, we still have a sacred space, and outside would be ideal. So it really just depends on the weather that day if someone's interested in sitting.
So somebody is asking, how long does somebody have to be off of antidepressants before doing the Bufo medicine?
Yeah, I would say a minimum of 2 weeks. It really depends on their dosage and which particular one that they're on. But even then, we would start with a very low dose of the 5-MeO medicine just to see their reaction. So someone and that's another reason why I'm working with someone new who I haven't worked with before. We always start with a lower dose, because that lower dose, the experience itself should only probably be 5 to 7 minutes, and if someone is on SSRIs or MAOIs, they're going to have a serotonin reaction where that experience is going to last much, much longer. And that kind of gives me a way of addressing, okay, hey, maybe they weren't being, fully honest about what medications they are or are not on. So that we do that as like a test, right? So we do start with the low dose and we have enough experience to know, okay, yeah, that was how a typical experience should go and how long it should have lasted. If it goes significantly longer, then we know there's something off.
Do you suggest to people that they consult a physician, like if they have any concerns about whether or not they can go through this ceremony? I doubt, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't think the medical community has much experience to these types of spiritual ceremonies. Like I guess I just want to address somebody's concerns about these kinds of spiritual ceremonies.
For sure. I'll give my uncensored perspective on the medical community. The medical community is trained by the pharmaceutical industry, and they're funded by the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry has no interest in seeing anyone get better permanently. They're interested in keeping long-term customers. So if you're consulting someone who is a branch of an industry that doesn't want to see you get better, I think it's time for us to maybe develop a better intuitive sense of our own health and our own well-being, so that we can and expand our awareness and wisdom around natural healing modalities, so that we can get ourselves clean enough to know intuitively and to have a stronger connection to spirit, so we can know intuitively whether something is in resonance for us or not in resonance for us, rather than consulting someone who just happens to wear a lab coat and it gets paid by an industry that doesn't want us to see us get better.
That's a really good answer. Yeah, that's a really good answer. Do you use muscle testing at all?
So, not regularly, just because I don't feel like I have received. I would like to learn muscle testing from someone in person. Dr. Hawkins, who, from my understanding, kind of used and developed that method I'm a very big fan of his work and his books. I've read like he has just so many incredible books that will just expand your consciousness and will be healing just to read them. He uses that technique a lot. I know all the methods for muscle testing. I'm very, very familiar with them, but I don't regularly use it. From my understanding, the people, whoever's being tested and whoever the tester is, has to have a certain level of consciousness in order to get an accurate test. So from my understanding, you can't just like muscle test anyone, or you can't have anyone just muscle testing. There has to be like a certain level first of consciousness, and then they have to be unattached to the outcome of the question. So yes, I'm aware of it. Know a lot about it. I'm very fond of Dr. Hawking's books and his works and his research, but I don't regularly use it because I don't feel like I'm equipped to use it correctly at 100%.
Okay. Well, that's a good answer. Does anyone else have any questions? I was surprised. I was expecting more questions.
Hello, everybody. Brooke actually asked the question that I was wondering too, which was about the other ceremony. What was it? San
Pedro?
San Pedro. Thank you. I'm so used to Palo Santo. Yes. Yeah, that was my question also. Thank you for enlightening me, as well as probably others, on this new ceremony that I've never heard of, that I'm very intrigued of. So Arizona's always been a calling to me in the last few years. So yeah, just looking forward to getting more information from you, Chase.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I would say, like, maybe to expand the range of questions, you know, but I'm very familiar with all of the medicines that people are working with, from, you know, ibogaine to ketamine to ayahuasca to mushrooms. If anybody has questions about those types of things, or you know, I mentioned to you, Diana, that, you know, another passion of mine is, you know, emerging technology, like working with PEMF frequencies, you know, Tesla technology frequencies, sacred geometry, different forms of meditation, or you know, different forms of healing. I would say that, you know, those have all been a strong passion of mine for quite some time. Or even if you want to expand it to conspiracy theories, you know, and this kind of seems to be a big topic right now.
They are.
You know, I would say I like to stay well versed in all those things. So if anyone's feeling called to talk about anything like that, I'd be more than happy to.
I once had someone tell me that they had done an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru, and that they would be processing that ceremony for the rest of their life. Like, there was so much to take away from it that they would be processing it forever. And so when Nayeli described the Bufo ceremony, I don't know, I think it was partly just the look on her face. There was just like this glow when she described it. I wanted to know more, and it sounded interesting enough that I knew other people would be interested in it as well. So yeah. Nancy's asking about PEMF. She
Yeah.
hasn't, yeah.
It's a pulse
Se nos
electromagnetic.
cayó un arbolote aquí en la march. Bueno, entre la
I don't know, somebody needs to silence their.
y esta, allá por el canalito.
No, whose
allá
phone is
llegando
that? Can we please?
todo cruzado el pinche arbolote de no mames.
Whose phone is that? Oh no.
Pero cabrón, bien grandote, se mira un chico de gente.
Whose phone is that?
No, huevo, tú me vienes por acá por la quinta.
I
No
don't
puedes
see
dar vueltas.
what
¿Verdad?
that is.
Oh,
Could you
it was
guys,
like Ollie.
Todo la miro film no tiene luz.
Ollie,
Todas las
maybe?
ricos,
OLY?
okay,
luz.
okay, I'm
La jefa
gonna
de Sandra
silence
ya
her.
van
Where is she?
2 días y se va a la casa de su suegra. No tiene luz. No, ya está abierta. Ahorita pues por ahí pasé por la quinta. Ahorita está abierta. Yo fui por la leche y te digo, tú te puedes ir nada. No, pero ya abrieron.
Diana, I think you silenced yourself.
Okay, okay, whoever it was. Oh my God, that's hysterical. Ah! Oldie, could you please silence your mute yourself because it's coming through. Thank you. Okay. Wow. Things I'm learning in the Zoom world oh my goodness.
You know what a very important aspect to reaching spiritual enlightenment is its humor. So if you can't laugh about our journey, then I think you're really missing out on something.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes it's harder than others. I'm telling you, I'm gonna tell you what happened to me this week. In just one day, okay? My washing machine broke down and that came out to a really hefty cost. And then the same day I had someone coming out to check the HVAC and was informed that I needed a whole new system, a whole new heater, a whole new air conditioner. And so I had to go to the laundromat because my washer was out. And while I was there, this big, huge gust of wind came that felt like, is there going to be a tornado? Well, someone parked next to me at the time had their door open and it slammed into my car and cracked my tail light. And when I got home, I found out that my fence in my backyard had come down. That was all in one day. So yeah, that was really hard to find any humor in that day. And my brother, he shared with me a poem today that he wrote about how the sun is shining even when you can't see it. The sun is always there and it'll shine again. So yeah, that was a really tough day. But anyway, so let me see.
My belief around that is that life is happening for us, not to us. And this whole life experience is not by accident. Like this whole life experience, the foundation of it is love. So even when things like that happen, it's only just testing our ability to remain grounded, and it's happening for us. So when I keep that perspective, no matter what happens, all I can do is just laugh. And I'm not sure if anyone here reads the Course in Miracles, but the Course in Miracles has a section on judgment, whether we judge something as good or bad, right? And it says that even giving up the ability to judge is giving up something we never had, because without knowing every past, present, and future effect and all variables involved, can we actually fully rightly judge something? And did we not previously judge certain things as bad and then in the future then judge them as good, or vice versa? So it's like it just is these things that happen, and it's like just remembering that this is happening for us.
Yeah, that was in the same conversation I was having with my brother about someone who had been really harmful to me. And I looked back and realized that person had taught me a lesson on how to stand up for myself, which I had not learned before, not in that way anyway. And it was a hard lesson, but it did teach me something regardless. Okay, so someone is asking, once the ceremony is over, do people tend to forget their experience like they tend to do with ayahuasca?
They tend to forget their experience. So, there is, because the experience itself is beyond the normal senses, and those senses also include the sense of time. So it's almost like going into a dream state in a way, if so. There's going to be aspects that are going to be important for us to remember. We always encourage people to write things down right after they kind of get regrounded, the things that are important. But there is a sense of like some type of amnesia. Like if you were trying to begin the practice of like working with your dreams, you have to write them down as soon as you wake up in order to remember them in detail. So if you were to like sit with the medicine and you like were trying to remember your whole experience, and then a couple of days later, it would probably be a little difficult to remember every little detail. So I always encourage everyone to bring a journal, or I'll have paper and pen here for them to write down things that they would like to remember or want to remember, because it does have a dream-like effect once you come out of it.
Yeah, Nayeli said it's good to journal right after the ceremony. Thank you, Nayeli.
Absolutely.
Someone is asking, once the ceremony is over, do they feel that unconditional love feeling like the afterglow of ayahuasca? I thought you hit on that though.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is an afterglow that lasts, for a few weeks. And really, our focus when we work with someone is keeping that going, right? So if you just don't do anything different, if you're like, oh, you're blissed out and you feel love and groundedness and lightness, but you don't do anything to keep that going, by making changes in the way that you view things or your daily habits or your daily practices, then I think that's going to be challenging to keep that going. It is going to fade. But the nature of these life experiences is that our AC is going to go out, our back fence is going to blow down, and someone's going to hit our car.
Goodness.
But that's also happening for us also. So we wouldn't learn anything in this life if everything was always blissed out love. That we wouldn't learn as much.
So one thing that, like, as I mentioned, I've been listening to all of these near-death experience stories, and they talk about when they go to the other side, how profound the experiences of the unconditional love that they feel when they go into this other realm. And it sounds like when you described the Bufo ceremony that people get a glimpse of that. It's almost like being able to visit that realm, an opportunity to visit that realm, to feel that love, to feel that peace, and also an opportunity to have access to a higher perspective, an elevated view for receiving information and receiving healing as well. So there was so much that interested me about what you do and what you offer. And I thought more people would want to learn more about it and to possibly receive it as well. I really care about what I do and how it can help people, but I also know that there's other things out there that, I'm not for everybody, and what I do isn't the heal all for everybody and everything. And so I like to try to invite people to share what they do and how it can help others. So that's one thing that I've also heard in near-death experience stories, is how they receive healing when they go to this other place and this other realm. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're offering, is an opportunity to see if that could come through for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. All the books that I've read about near-death experiences, they align pretty perfectly with what people experience on this medicine. Going into the light is a consistent thing with every single person. Being outside of the body, having no relation of understanding of perception of time, receiving healing, and being inside of like just profound love. I kind of look at what I'm doing, we take it, it's taken very intentionally. I don't want to use the word seriously, because we like to have fun and we like to keep humor as like kind of an underlying theme, but we do everything very intentionally, because we do look at what we're doing is facilitating an out-of-body near-death experience. And then, you know, just this past Saturday, I hosted for 3 people, and you know, one of them had a death experience where during her experience she was saying her goodbyes. You know, she was saying her goodbyes to her partner, and she has a disease where she has like very little function in one of her organs, and she's actually has a big fear of death. And that was her call to want to sit with this medicine. And it's just been you know, profound for her just in this past couple of days to have that death experience and realize that everything's going to be okay, and that she's not the body. And then on the other side is just pure love.
You and I touched on this when we spoke before the chat a few days ago. How long does a ceremony take? I want you to share that.
Yeah. Typically it's 2 to 3 hours. The actual effects of the medicine itself last, depending on dosage, last between 5 to 7 minutes to 20 minutes. But like I said, we like to really connect with someone on the soul level and have good conversation for however long that needs to take, 30 minutes to an hour. And then we do some energy work. And then I have something that I have them read, some affirmations about their life experience. And then they send with the medicine. And then we don't want them to feel rushed to leave. So, you know, like today I hosted ceremony. She arrived at 12 and she left at 4, you know, but I've had people leave after, you know, 2 hours, you know, especially if I've worked with them before.
Okay. What about fasting prior to the ceremony? Should somebody fast before?
Sure. So typically with medicines like ayahuasca and a few of the cactus medicines, there's, you know, there's like weeks long preparation and fasting that happens before. The protocol that I use is I just tell people just don't do anything out of the ordinary from what you're already doing. Don't take any new medications. Don't eat anything that you don't typically eat. You know, don't drink coffee if you normally don't drink coffee. Like come in in a very grounded, balanced place. So not adding any new variables in. If you feel intuitively to fast that day for whatever reason, I would say listen to that. You know, I serve lots of people who have been fasting for a whole day. You know, that's just because that's what they felt called to do. But I don't say you have to fast. You can't eat anything. It's not common for people to throw up on this medicine. I've only had it happen maybe twice. But that was just another form of purging. But just most people don't purge on this medicine. So my really only thing before is just making sure that they're well hydrated. Because I feel like when you're working with any of these medicines, there's so much energy involved in the process that our bodies need to be well hydrated. So that's kind of like my main thing. Don't do anything out of the ordinary, just as you normally would. Make sure you get a good night's sleep, have a good meditation the morning before, just get grounded, go outside, put your bare feet on the ground, drink plenty of water. That's kind of my protocol before ceremony.
And after sessions with me, I find that people they go through this kind of shedding of heavy energy. Well, I won't call it negative, but heavy energy. Does that happen with the Bufo ceremonies?
Yeah, for sure. I would say every single person that I sit with the day of and the day after, all they say is, I feel so much lighter. I can't believe how much lighter I feel. And the like tensions in the body and the neck and the head and the throat, you know, and the lower back, there's just immediate release of just overall tension and feeling of heaviness, for sure.
Yeah, emotions really do have a weight to them.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay. I think we're going to be wrapping up soon because I don't see any more questions, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity. First, before we go, everyone's asking how they can get a hold of you, and I don't want to not answer those questions, but is there anything else you want people to know about a Bufo ceremony, and what is the most sacredness of it to you? The most sacred aspect of it?
The most sacred aspect is experiencing the oneness of God, experiencing the oneness of all things, and finding out that the foundation of everything is pure love.
Mm. That's so beautiful. Nice.
That is for sure the most sacred aspect of it. Of course, there's individual aspects that each person finds sacred, but that is a key running experience of this medicine. And what I really like about that is it kind of allows people to kind of put an anchor into that so that they have something to go back to. Right. So this isn't like an addictive medicine that they're going to be wanting to do all the time because they're addicted to feeling that oneness of all things. Like, but it just gives you an anchor to kind of go back to, like in your meditation or, you know, in your daily life, like just for knowing and remembering and having an experience of that is just, it's kind of like a cheat code or something. I don't know, for life. It's just beautiful.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't see any more questions. And I think we will go ahead and call it a wrap. I want to apologize, you guys. Okay, so I am totally new to these, and I just I wanted to create an opportunity for people to be able to ask questions in real time. You watch all of these YouTube videos and people bring on a guest and they ask their questions, and people watching might have their own questions. And I just wanted to create a community where people can do that. So I will share this information on Instagram. The thing about your Instagram account, Chase, is that it's private. So
Yeah.
somebody send you a message and say, hey, I saw you on the Zoom video. Can I be invited to be added?
Of course. So yeah, I just added my Telegram name, and I also added my Instagram name to the chat, to the meeting chat.
Okay.
And anyone can send me a request on there. Yeah, I mean, I don't deny anyone when they send me a request on Instagram. I just keep it private because there's so many like bots and, you know, yeah, there's just lots of stuff floating around on Instagram. So I just like to, you know, and I like to keep our privacy too. It's important to me and it's important to my family. So, but I'm very open. I'm always willing to talk. I'm always willing to help support. If, you know, we really pride ourselves on our ability to help people integrate these types of experiences. So if someone has a ceremony with someone else and they need support or help integrating, you know, we love to support them in something like that. Or just if they just want to reach out and they have more questions that they didn't think of during this call, I'd be happy and honored to help support them and answer those questions.
Okay. Okay. Last call, guys. If anyone has any questions, I think we're done. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for coming. Please do me a favor and like the video on YouTube if you're not following me on Instagram. If you want to be added for future videos, send me a message and send me your email and I'll add you to my email list. And I think we're going to call that a wrap. Thank you so much, Chase. It was nice talking to you. Okay, blessings. Blessings to you, everybody. Bye for now.
Everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.